morning. My name is Alicia. I'm on the QC at MCON, and
I'm Mitchell. I'm sales and engineering with Forterra.
first we'll start with description of how it's inside, what is inside the product, and I will show you some of the products as well in here. First, this is the cage. Basically, we have this for the typer tops. You can see in here. The other, if we move to this side, because basically I will show you what are the main notes in the pipe, in the product. We have the manufacturer, in our case is MCON. The other important part is the CSA, that is in black in here. The P, that is pre-qualified product. Steps has to be aligned as well, and the height.
So I'll get you guys to come in around here. So this is one of our mono bases, and it's pre-benched, to Ottawa spec up to the obvert. What you see is we have different pipe openings. So at the front here we have a core and seal boot, which is something you're more likely to see from Forterra. And on the two sides we have an A-lock gasket, which is something you're more likely to see from MCON. For the core and seal boot at the front there, they have a lot of flexibility. They have about a 7-degree amount of flexibility where that pipe can come in on a slight angle or a slight grade change and it's going to be okay, no problem. On the A-lock gaskets, they're a lot easier to install because you slide your pipe in and you're done. However, it has about a 1.5-degree amount of deflection flexibility, and so it's really important for those to go in straight, as straight as you can. You'll notice on the edge of the benching here, there's a lip. And that lip is designed to fit the pipe that's been specified for that opening. So that lip is supposed to have the PVC pipe or concrete pipe come in and sit on that. So there's a smooth transition between the benching and the pipe that is being set in there. So pipe should always be on the lip. Then the next thing is safety is always really important. So both MCON and Forterra, we all lift our products with one of these using pre-installed pins. And it's really important that when these are installed, that these get installed and this tongue is in the direction of your lifting and underneath this bail. So this is properly installed. This will be good to lift. Sometimes what we see is guys will lift like this with the tongue facing out. That's a disaster waiting to happen because a little slight bit of movement and this is just going to come off. So it's always put in, turn it around, and make sure that that tongue is against the surface in the direction of lifting. One of the issues that we see oftentimes on a mortared pipe is they set that pipe right on the bottom of the opening. And that can lead to a couple things. First of all, that gives you a spot where it's easier for water to infiltrate because you're not going to be able to get the mortar under that pipe. The next thing that can happen is further up the structure, if this is a tall structure, you could have upper openings in other pieces. And if you've shifted that whole structure up, then that could mean that that opening is no longer in the correct place for that pipe. And then we get a call saying, hey, your hole's in the wrong spot. What are you guys doing? But most times it comes from the base of the structure that was set higher up than it was intended. The other thing is then you get all the way to the top of the structure, and oftentimes it's eating into the adjustment space, and there's inadequate amount of adjustment, and that's because we just moved the whole structure up a few inches. So very important that the pipes are centered as best can be in the structure. The next thing is on a mortared concrete pipe, you need to have your cradle come right out to the first joint. Sometimes, if they're using a full pipe length, they want to cut it short because, save material, the 4 feet, good enough cradle. But what happens is that becomes a point where the pipe wants to flex, and that can lead to a circumferential crack coming around this pipe. Very important to have the cradle come all the way to this joint because then that becomes the flexibility point, and you want the joint to flex versus the center of the pipe. Looking at this, in the city of Ottawa, we can use boots up to 825 pipe. You can use boots on concrete pipe. And this is a pretty good solution to speed up things on the job site because it allows you to install. You don't need a cradle. You can strap up the pipe and start backfilling right away. One very important thing is to make sure that the bedding is compacted right up to the structure. Oftentimes that's an area where it's not as well compacted. And it's very important that this pipe is sit on a really good piece of bedding, because you want to make sure that this is centered in the boot and doesn't drop. We've been to job sites before where the pipe is put in, centered in the boot, and then they drop it onto the bedding, and that'll lead to a leak at the top of the pipe because that boot can't always stretch to the bottom of the opening, and those bands aren't strong enough to pull the boot down. So it's really designed to be as centered as best can be. The other thing is I got a bucket of lube over there. We always suggest that if you're putting concrete pipe into a boot, to lube up the outside of that pipe, so it just allows that pipe to slip into the boot a little bit easier. Just makes the process easier than without lube. So next I'm going to pull you guys around to the back of this structure. I just want to take a look at this boot a little closer. So we use two different types of boots depending on the size. So the boot on this structure over here is, and it's similar to what's used up to about 375, is called our direct drive boot. And those you can crank on them on the job site if you have to tighten them. These come factory installed and are usually pretty good, but the odd one might need a quarter turn on its band right here. And you can crank those as much as you want. It's not going to cause any problems. But some of our bigger boots, so 450 and up, has a wedge right here. And if this wedge is torqued beyond its capacity, that wedge can break. And that's going to render the boot useless. So you have to make sure that this, if you see a wedge, give us a call. We can tell you the torque limit on those to make sure that you don't break the boot. The other thing is sometimes you get to a job site, an existing pipe is not where you thought it was, or there's a design change after the structure's built and you have to move a pipe slightly. These boots can be loosened off by this bolt and removed by hand from the structure. And this boot can then be returned to us for a refund. However, if, and I mention this because I've seen it before, don't blow a hole in the top of the boot and rip it out with the excavator, because then it's useless. Then you can't get the refund on it, and it's become garbage. So very important to unbolt it and just remove by hand. Any questions?